That's what it is. It is they're really taking the bull by the horns in terms of putting the infrastructure in place. They really want to grow this sport. Like you mentioned, up to 300 million participants in winter sports. That's almost unprecedented and unheard of. It could only happen in a nation like that, backed by infrastructure. You heard in that story just before that they're making some of these classes free. They're making some of these academies free, very much modeling the system on a European soccer method where they take young athletes and they really identify them at an early age and they bring them into these academies. That's what China is trying to do, not only to grow the sport, but to really identify who some of these up-and-coming stars could be, not only just for the 2022 Olympics, but moving forward, looking to ways to make inroads into the Winter Olympic sports that they're not normally known for.
Let's talk about money here. The market value of the winter sports industry in China nearly tripled in just 3 years, and the number of ski resorts and people who go skiing both nearly doubled, and we're talking billions here. So the winter sports market, gear doesn't come cheap. So what are some of the considerations as international companies look at the Chinese market and its future?
Well, they see growth, they see money, they see billions of people. Here in America, you're looking at a couple 100 million people, and that's if everyone buys in. Even if a small fraction of people in China buy in, you're looking at hundreds of millions of people. If you're able to get into the billions, that is an astronomical amount of money for a company to invest in, because they'll see it on the back end. A sport can take off just like that. If you look at what's going to happen in the 2022 Olympics, will there be one sport that takes off above others? Certainly, they're trying to make their bones in skiing, different ski resorts, certainly from the youth level, having people grow to love skiing. But that could happen across any number of sports. So companies from inside China and from outside see dollar signs with this infrastructure that they're building there. If they could get people to participate in these sports, you just see many different layers of ways that companies can make money for sure.
And speaking of the Winter Olympics itself, have you heard much in terms of how the venues are coming along or what's happening behind the scenes as we're getting closer to that date?
Sure. Well, the venues are coming along, and they're really trying to make them be groundbreaking venues in terms of environmentally safe. They're building this Olympic Village forest, transplanting almost 20,000 plants and trees from around the country. Looking at barcodes as readers, certainly COVID-19 at the top of everyone's mind, but they're using some of these barcodes and some of the technology for contact tracing. So these are all ways and things that they're thinking about. And when it comes to the venues, we hear this term when it comes to Olympic venues, the white elephant. We hear this with Olympics and with World Cup, where the stadiums just go dormant, where no one uses them. One of the things that they're looking at for 2022 is how can we reuse these venues down the line, whether they be for practice facilities, whether they be for training centers. So they're really trying to make it ecologically beneficial for the environment, but also from a financial standpoint, how it will pay dividends down the road in terms of reusing some of these venues. But the venues are coming along quite well, and they're quite dramatic, as you would expect.
And Mike, we got to talk about coronavirus. You mentioned the pandemic. And if we didn't have the pandemic, we would have already witnessed the end of the Summer Olympic Games in Tokyo. So what do you think organizers have learned from that experience and in planning for 2022?
Well, that's the big question. What has Tokyo learned from this, trying to plan for Tokyo 2020, which will be in 2021? We really don't know. What will travel look like? What will athlete participation look like? Will the games even have spectators? Certainly for the Tokyo 2021 games, spectators possibly at a very minimal. So when it comes to 2022, even though it's a year and a half away, so much can change. We never thought we'd be here with Tokyo 2022 not going on. So I think that lessons to be learned will be learned over the next year and a half leading up to those games. I think Tokyo 2021 will be a good trial and error system for what happens in the winter.